Hello and welcome. It's great to have you with us on to the Final Bell, the official Geelong Cats podcast. We are brought to you by Lake Imaging, as we are every single week. We are up and about today. The Cats had a fantastic win last Thursday night, and Friday night footy against the Bulldogs promises to be a massive game. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a heap of people watching it in the stands. I'm sure there'll be heaps watching at home. And I tried my hardest to get this man removed, to recuse himself from this podcast, because as much as he loves the Cats and is happy to talk all things Cats, deep in that wicked heart of his, he's a Bulldogs man. I speak of my partner in crime. Scott Gullan is with us again. Hello, Scotty.
Cameron, hello. I'm an unbiased journalist because in my role in the media, I have to have equal love for everyone and equal hatred for everyone. So,
but deep down, there is a Dogs man in there.
Look, when you're paying for a club that only won one flag in its history and then it gets one recently, yeah, I must admit I was a bit happy that day, Cameron. But it'll be a very interesting clash. Unfortunately, you won't be there with your kids annoying you eating dim sims. No one's going to be there.
No one will be there, unfortunately.
This is a disgrace. Can we get political? Are we allowed to get political? We probably can't.
You can do what you like here, Scotty. I'm not going to put a stop to that.
Right.
It looked like for a couple of days we might.
I know, and they're leaving the door a little ajar. What's wrong with this scenario? Okay, Geelong and the country Victoria region having no cases since October, I think the stat was.
Correct.
They've built a wall before. Build the wall and just say anyone from Melbourne's not allowed in. And if you get upset, that's just life. So make it a Geelong-centric game and country Victoria. Come with your ID and prove I'm from Gullan, you're in. Why couldn't we do something like that? Explain why.
It's a fair point you make, because I feel like people would be okay with a slightly slower admission process. If we've got to scan, we've got to check in with the QR code. But also, your ID is going to be checked.
Absolutely.
And I think people would be comfortable with that for the chance of being able to go to a huge Friday night footy game.
It's a one-off. And the Cat fans in Melbourne would understand it. They're in lockdown. They get that it's different in Geelong. This is the whole thing. Oh, we've got to be equal everywhere. No, you don't. I mean, COVID hasn't made anything equal. So I think it's poor lack of flexibility by the government and the AFL. And my rant is over now, Cameron.
That's okay. I like the rant, because unfortunately the club is going to take a big hit from this. I think reports were that everything was sold out. And I mean, everything by reserved seats, other seating, corporate, all the dinners that would have gone on, would have been plenty of money coming into the club. That's not going to happen. That doesn't take away from the fact it will be a ripping game. Let's get to that one shortly. We're going to get to your questions a bit later on too. We've also got a little AFL-wide issue that we're going to talk about. I know you
outrage
did something in your paper, the Herald Sun, today, but last Thursday night, that was impressive. I know we've been up about the Cats. We've had our maybe moments of concern when you watch the Collingwood game, despite it being a win. Oh, hang on, just what's not clicking? It feels as though the last month Geelong has played whatever is in front of them. If Collingwood want to play that way, okay, we'll play that way, but we'll beat you. Gold Coast want to start, we'll play that way and we'll beat you. What we saw on Thursday night was, okay, Port were prepared to open the game up a bit more and score and attack. Okay, great, we'll play that game as well and we'll beat you at it. And it was impressive. It was a brilliant game of footy, quality game of football. But the response by the Cats, in particular, 6 minutes into the last quarter, was super impressive.
No, but it was high octane. I mean, Connor Rose was playing like you there for about 20 minutes. It was unbelievable. And it was like, poor old Zach got on him a couple of those people. It wasn't his fault, but Connor Rose was hot. And then it was just a high octane game, which we knew it would be. Charlie Dixon's getting involved. It was, like you said, great spectacle. You're right. The Cats they find levels they have to find, and it's a sign of a very complete team. Now, the Jeremy Cameron thing, I mean, the stats are off the charts since he's been in. Hawkins, him and Rowan have just had a party. I mean, Gary Rowan's in career best form on the back of it, and Hawkins is doing what he does. So it was a very good win. And off the bye, I got sucked into that. clearly lockdown is the future for this Geelong football club.
I told you, Scotty, that was my theory. There was no running off on these beautiful, relaxing holidays where they switched off. They stayed hard, focused.
Next year, Chris Scott has to go. You know what? We're in COVID again. Let's pretend.
We're going to put
them down.
Put you in a cage and just make you fight for every scrap of food.
How about the day they had, though? That's what adds to it. They were up early, had to be tested before they got on a plane, arrived at the Adelaide Oval like 8 hours before they played, more tests. They lay around a cricket nets for 3 or 4 hours. Some slept, some played cricket. It's a phenomenal effort to remain. We know what you like in your prep. If you didn't get exactly your own little car drive and your own little this, you'd be a mental wreck. Your own little feet.
You're right about one thing, though. The waiting around would have been something I wouldn't have loved, because at least when you flew in the day before, you stayed at the hotel, that waiting around was on your own terms. Do I feel like watching a movie because I just want to kill the afternoon? Great. Do I want to go for a walk because it was a nice day and I felt like it? You could. And you just turn that waiting time into something that you enjoy doing, and then you're ready to go. They had no choice on the weekend or on Thursday. They just had to wait in one big room, the cricket facilities. And as we saw, creative ways of passing the time. Was that Jeremy Cameron under the table?
Yeah, he said, I slept, had to be woken up.
This is a man who the boys have said will happily go out onto Corio Bay over the pre-season when it was a bit warmer, go fishing, and would sleep on his boat because he just felt like a nap. This is a man who can clearly sleep anywhere.
He's warming to my heart because he never trains. Apparently the first time he trained was last week as well. He sleeps whenever he can. He's becoming my favourite player quickly.
Gee, he looked incredible. And you mentioned Tom Hawkins as well. The combination is working straight away. Tom's selflessness and still ability to have huge moments himself, but he's bringing Jeremy Cameron into the game. And Cameron is so good that he is forcing himself into games. It looks impressive. Down the other end of the ground, Tom Stewart, once again, magnificent, continuing his brilliant season.
Got to be all Australian again, Cameron. I'm making it early. It has to happen.
Well, you'd imagine the form is pointing in that direction. The middle of the ground was interesting, Scotty. Like, at times there were huge momentum shifts. Port Adelaide controlled it at times. Ollie Wines and those types of players were centre clearances, were leading to Port goals. I mentioned that last quarter. Felt like 5 minutes into that quarter, hang on, the Cats are going to lose this game by 6 goals. And then when it just ripped back the other way, it was done to, I suppose, almost the most impressive thing. Paddy Dangerfield was just...
I liked it in a sense. Yeah, he played not a minimal role. He had important moments, but it wasn't the Paddy show, was it? By any
No, he was scratchy, and you could tell he hasn't played for a while, and he had the fumbles, and he had a non-Paddy Dangerfield type game. He'll be better for the run, but in the meantime, they've beaten a really top quality opposition on their home deck without a monster Dangerfield game, which is wonderful. I do want to ask you about one thing, though. You and I shared our bemused looks in the lead up to the game when selection was announced. Sparkle Narkle left out of the team, ended up the medical sub. I was shocked.
I'm still outraged. But where do we get him in? The Shark came in and did his thing. The Shark played very well on Boak first half. Boak got touches second half, got a bit of generation. But you're right. I mean, Cam Guthrie didn't make it. So we've got to talk about that in a minute, how we get him back in the team.
We think Guthrie should come back this week?
Yeah, that was the mail. The shoulder wasn't too bad, so he's had an extra week. So put your selector's hat on now. If Sparkle, who can't get a game, which I was outraged, but then obviously they played well and got it done, where do you put him?
Yeah, and a great problem to have, of course. That's stating the obvious about competition for spots. Guthrie automatically comes back in. Who goes out? I don't know. I'm going to say right now the scratchiest of them all is Sean Higgins.
That's a good call.
And maybe it's Guthrie for Higgins, but that doesn't find a spot for Quinton Narkle. And my worry is the message that sends to somebody who's clearly done a lot of work and has been in and out of the team over the years, but has done a lot of work, has then produced high quality football, really high quality football.
I was
And
devastated.
he then says, well, what do you want me to do then? If that's not good enough to keep me in the team, what more do I have to do? And you start worrying and doubting yourself, perhaps. That doesn't say there's a spot for him. I'm not saying you've just got to force him in, but that is my concern, that he ends up questioning himself and the way he's been going about it over the last month.
You've got to be very supportive. I think the Cats were guilty a bit early in the season of, the forwards have their roles. Brad Close, Dalhouse. There's certain types. When you start, we'll put a midfielder in there because they're a great player and we need to get him in the team. Then the structure moves and it's not always the best result.
That's fair. That's fair. And I mean, speaking of forwards, Graham Myers probably right for this week, as I think we both agree, that he would come through the VFL, which looks like being a curtain raiser on Friday afternoon before the AFL game. That's still to be confirmed. Again, doesn't really matter because unfortunately no one gets to go along and watch it.
I'll be watching it, but it'll be great.
But hopefully Brian Myers comes in there and gets a couple of games under his belt and he starts putting pressure on Close and on Dalhouse, and then you've got competition for spots in those specific roles within the forward line.
You're right. A selection statement will have to be made this week, only because everyone's up fit. And you got their best player for the season virtually ready to come back from injury.
Now, there's no one I'm missing, is there, Scotty, who needs to come back in immediately?
Chuka, how's he travelling? No. I think we've got it all ticked, haven't we?
I'm probably losing that battle at the moment. We're not finding a spot for Jordan Clark in a hurry here, Scotland.
Well, I've sort of had to give up on that campaign. It's on ice because, again, I don't know where you put him. I mean, the facts are they recruited well for now. They got experienced guys in there, and when everyone's fit, the 25 players is elite, and you're not going to get a game.
Take your Bulldogs scarf off. I'll take my Cats scarf off, and we'll try to be as objective as we possibly can coming into Friday night's game. It will be a brilliant game. It will be a great test. The Bulldogs minus Treloar and Dunkley, I don't think either of them will be coming back.
No.
The midfield's probably as good as each other. The back line for Geelong is rock solid, and Norton's a handful, a big handful when he gets
Norton
going.
is an unbelievable player. Josh Bruce has been okay. So the forward structure, with the ruckman in there, it's okay. It's working all right.
Are you agreeing that the big circle on the board where Geelong perhaps get that advantage is Hawkins, Cameron, Rowan, Close, Dalhouse against those Bulldogs defenders? Mind you, Easton Wood a chance to come back this week.
To be back. I think the Bulldog defence has copped it a bit unfairly because if you look at the stats, they have stood up well. Former Geelong great Ryan Gardner's back, so that has helped. Alex Keith's a good player. They get a lot of run. Williams, Bailey Dale's been a revelation there. Caleb Daniels. So they're very highly skilled. They can slingshot very quickly. So that's on paper, the big guys, Cameron, Hawkins can get hold of them potentially, but I wouldn't underrate what they generate out of the back half of the Dogs.
Are we going to see Mark O'Connor versus Tom Liberatore as opposed to Bontempelli, which we've seen the last couple of weeks?
No, I think the Libber thing's been done now. I'd go to Bont. I mean, physically, the Shark is the right height for Bontempelli. If I was Geelong, I think Bont's the one. If Bont stars, they win every time. Libber, I get it. You cut it off at the source. Makes it a little bit harder for Bont than that, but it might have worked once a couple of weeks ago. I'd go Bontempelli.
Yeah. That would, and I get it stopping at the source as well, because then you don't know, Bont, does he come inside more rather than getting everything on the outside, or not everything on the outside? He doesn't play like that, but he's able to get more creative on the outside. I just wonder if you take away your big dog, which Bont is, and you take him out of the game. He doesn't get those forward entries. He doesn't kick the
Well, he's
goals.
kicking goals this year. He's kicking a lot more goals than he previously has.
Yeah, and Treloar's not there who kicks goals and breaks lines as well. It just maybe they start looking around a little bit at each other and like, oh, hang on, where's their drive coming from? And
yeah, I agree.
you potentially, and I'm only throwing this up, is you reverse it back to 12 months ago where the Bulldogs mids were still good and still finding heaps of the ball, but they were going nowhere with it. And that was possessions in a small diameter radius from the contest and lots of possessions, but no real ground being taken. If Bont's taken out of the game and Treloar is no longer there.
That's fair.
A potential way to exploit them, but you're going to have to be very, very good to be able to do that. They are.
Yeah. But the
such
styles, it's going to be a clash of two styles. I mean, Footscray's handball movements back to 2016 level. Like they're go, go, go. Geelong like to, as we know, keep the ball kicking around. They can go fast, but it's not their first point of call. So it'll be interesting. Can they pressure the Dogs enough, or will the Dogs get the ball moving far quicker?
It's a good question. And my belief now is that Geelong I'm feeling less like that. All they want to do is that kick mark.
I agree with that.
It feels like whatever the opposition presents in front of them, they will play them on those terms and aim to beat them on those terms, which is a high skill to have.
And a few of the boys have said, with Jeremy Cameron there, you're more prone to kicking it to Hawkers because there's two of them. Like that's what they were a bit slow at earlier in the year, weren't they? I mean, we don't want to kick it to 2-on-1 to Tom all the time, so let's hang on to it a bit. But with Karen and Rowan jumping all over the place, faster ball movement works.
It promises to be a ripping game. As I said, unfortunately, it looks like no crowds there, but I'm sure big TV audiences
will be there in your media hat, Cameron.
I believe I'm one of the very, very lucky few who I'll be there doing radio, ABC Grandstand. 774. So I will have some pretty good seats, which I consider myself very, very fortunate to be able to do that. It'll be a great game. Also, just another thing, Scotty, this Friday night, the game that we're talking about is the Victorian Responsible Gambling Foundation's Love the Game round. Rivals on the field, united against sport betting promotion. All 10 Victorian AFL clubs and more than 500 clubs across Victoria are protecting young people from sports betting promotion. It's important to talk to kids about the risks associated with gambling. For tips on how to talk to our kids, visit lovethegame.vic.gov.au. Important message there for Friday night's game. Let's take a break. I want to get to some of our listener questions, Scotty, and also want to just at the start of the next segment talk about a very divisive bump or attack on the footy or whatever you want to call it.
I'm always outraged at the moment.
We'll talk about that one next. Welcome back. It is great to have you with us on to the Final Bell. We're brought to you by Lake Imaging. Thank you to those guys for the support. I think I'm going to have to use their services soon, Scotland.
Gone down again.
The back. My back has been horrendous for, most of my playing career, and unfortunately that's probably what put a stop to my playing career. It tends to flare up a little bit when
the marathon running's out. That was you go for a little while there, Cameron, when you were completely loopy.
No, I'm continuing on. I've got to get back on my strict rehab journey, get right, but I might need to get a little visit to Lake Imaging as well at some stage. Scotty, before we get to the questions, David McKay has been sent straight to the tribunal for the collision with Hunter Clark of St Kilda. Now, can I start by saying I feel really bad for Hunter Clark because it was a horrific injury that he ended up with. Broken jaw.
We don't want that.
No, bad broken jaw. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he recovers. And it was horrific. And I am all for everything. Most things that are being done to try and eradicate.
Of course. We all know that and we all agree with that. Now, how the eradicating accidents is what this has been built up, and it's rightly so. Thursday night's tribunal could change the face of the game because Steve Hocking, your mate, and we love Hock, always have. He was a key person for building your premierships. He's deliberately set this up. The match review panel didn't do it. It was him. Basically a test case, I think.
Yeah.
I don't get.
No.
What's he trying to prove?
Well, so I've watched it again
Accidents
and again
happen.
and again, and I've even watched it in slow motion, which you shouldn't do because it
Exactly. You
it makes
played
you
the game.
question. Oh, could he have done this? Could he have done that? So
Well, that's how they're going to hang him
okay, but
with
on
slow
this,
motion.
yeah, you're right. On this occasion, it felt like two players superbly committed to a loose ball, and they are both going for the football. And that awful thing that sometimes happens on a footy field where one person comes off second best and it ends in a horrific injury and accident, which it did to Hunter Clark. I felt like David McKay was competing for the ball. He
Had
didn't
his
run.
hands on the ball.
Yeah, he had his hand. So he didn't run past the ball and choose to bump, which I know now is one thing. I remember 10 years ago, I was starting to argue like, oh, you should be allowed to bump. You should be. Even
No.
I've come on that journey to say, okay, now if you're choosing to bump and you make contact, well, it's on you. So I accept that, and that's fair because protecting the head as much as we can. But we can't take contact out of the game. It is a contact sport. And you can't take accidents out of the game, as sad as that is.
For accidents. It's just impossible. Think about basketball. You get an elbow in the eye that on a rebound that was an accident. You don't get kicked off and suspended for 3 weeks for that because it's accepted.
And for
It was an
a moment, I thought we had some sanity of this understanding, a completely different style of contact. But Lockie Henderson, the early one where Todd Marshall gets knocked out on Thursday night. Now, the free kick was paid. I didn't think the free kick should be paid, but whatever. Okay, that's what the umpire saw. So he reacted. Not a problem. Not going to hang the umpire for that. But I was worried that Henderson would actually maybe get a week or a fine or something like that when he shouldn't have, because his eyes were fixed on the ball. He was a football action wanting to mark the footy, watching the ball, and he made accidental contact with the head of Todd Marshall. He gets knocked out. That's really unfortunate for Marshall, but that is not Henderson's doing. It was a complete accident. So in that situation, they made the right call. Henderson had no case to answer. On this one, it feels like it's the same, except it's a ground ball, not a mark. And two players committed to winning a loose ball, and a bad accident happened.
So they're doing him for rough conduct. They say it was unreasonable in the circumstances, his action. Now, okay, he saw the ball running faster. He instantly moved as soon as he got the ball, bracing for contact because he knew it was there. Hunter Clark was in an awkward position. But what else was David McKay supposed to do? In a split second, we're talking, Cameron. Don't slow it down. And, he turned a little bit. This is monumentally fast. What, was he supposed to not go for the ball? Is that what Steve Hocking's trying to tell us? He had to think in his head, I could hurt this bloke. Have you got that much time when you play AFL football?
No,
I'm going to pull out of this contest or do something. I don't know.
He committed to a loose ball. So his alternatives are, if he'd thought of it 5 seconds earlier, go in slower, accept the other player's going to win the ball and maybe lay a tackle, but probably that player's already gone through because he was travelling at speed. The other one is to not put his body there and actually just try and tap the ball and hope that there's no contact. That is not. In fact, that leads to more accidents in the long run to the player who tries to tap the ball because you end up bad technique and you get hurt yourself. I think it's one of those horribly unfortunate ones where it was generally a loose ball. As much as we say it's 50-50, generally a loose ball is realistically 60-40. And someone gets there earlier, you can slightly turn your body, you can do whatever, and that 40% player should now has to make a decision where he doesn't make contact with the head because he is slightly second. This was genuine 50-50. They were both meeting at the same time with their hands on the ball.
Hands on the ball is the thing. If he didn't have his hands on the ball, well, then you can get him for technique, bad luck, concussion, broken jaw. He's made a call in that split second. I can get there first. And he almost did. And if they do him, seriously, I get, we don't want injuries, but we're talking about young kids and other leagues. Everyone understands accidents happen. Why doesn't the AFL just say, this is an example of accident. We feel really bad, but we understand every now and again they happen. But all these other examples we're going to, rule out.
Yeah. Well,
It's
everybody
a
will
very
be watching.
strange-
Everybody will be watching. Let's get to some questions though, Scotty.
what do you got for me?
We've got a few
How many
tricky
will Aaron
little ones
Norton
here.
kick? I've got 6 or 8 goals. Oh, sorry, keep going.
Is Aaron Norton your favourite or is Bont your favourite?
No, that's like your children giving me which one. I can't. No, I'm not no comment.
Which children do you like? Child, do you like the best?
Of yours, like them all because they terrorise you.
Connor H8 or Connor Hate maybe asks, rank after last week's podcast where the Selwood brothers broke the record for the number of games played by a set of brothers. Rank the Selwood brothers 1 to 4. Number 1 is easy.
Football ability or off-field ability
or as blokes, just good people. Number 1 is simple.
Well, I think Joel wins that.
Yes. 2 and 3 will be tricky.
Adam played in the Premiership, correct?
Correct. Yes.
He gets 2.
That's why. Yeah, that's why I'm going with Adam. Sorry, Scooter.
I think Scooter 3 and Troy. Well, he was at Brisbane. He sort of got the bad end of the stick, really.
Yeah, he ended up when the Lions were on the big slide, and that's not a direct shot at Troy because Troy then went on to have a fantastic impact at the Cats in the VFL as captain.
Well, an injury's got Troy more than he got a few of the other brothers.
Yeah. So I feel bad even ranking them, but I think that's fair.
No, I think that's fair.
Alex Kirkby asks, does Hawke have the best set shot in the AFL? Alex, that's...
a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't. The radar was off.
But he's pretty damn consistent now, isn't he?
His routine's the same. Yeah.
He's a great example of just working on your craft over years and years of not doing 100 shots in one night and then not doing any for the next 2 months and thinking, oh, yeah, I worked on my goal kick, it should be right. He just, every training session, maybe 10 extra shots on top of what he did. Whatever it is, working his routine, extra shots, over, what's he been going now? 14-year career. He is so reliable. Do you remember when he first started? The kicks had a fair bit of wave in them and they'd fade or they'd pull.
Well, that's BT, your mate. He has got a left or right or whatever it is, but he controls it and it's the same kick every time. So
he understands his kick. Yeah. So fair call, Alex.
I'd say, actually, Gary Rowan's got him covered, though.
Ooh, yeah. Tex Walker has a pretty nice set shot too.
Oh, until the game's on the line, he missed a few. Gary Rowan doesn't miss, Cameron.
He missed a couple on Thursday night early on that were getting me a little bit worried, but then he came back all right.
It's very close between those two.
Scotland. Caleb Buzz asks the big question, though. Palmy or Palmer?
Chicken Parmesan or chicken palmy? I'll have a Palmer. I'll have a palmy. Oh, I might be an A. I might be a ma.
Really? I'm a Palmer. I'm a palmy. You're a palmy. Yeah. Grab us a palmy, can you?
Can I get a Palmer? Can I get a palmy?
My usual one is, can you grab me a palmy with chips and gravy, please, and maybe a nice little pot on the side, thank you.
Yeah, that's generally how we roll. That's a good. I don't know. I can't commit. Sorry, Caleb. I'll cop either of them.
Caleb, he's sitting on the fence with the most important question of the year.
Rarely do I do that.
Get on the fence. Poppy Haxby asks, do you prefer playing at night or late afternoon?
Ooh.
Poppy, excellent question. I absolutely loved playing traditional day game. 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, whatever. I know there's no 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon game now, but I loved it because it shortened the day. I understood the Friday night was the big audience and usually a big crowd. And back then there were no lights at GMHBA Stadium, so it was a big one at the MCG. So it was a buzz around that. But I hated the waiting round. I often slept as long as I possibly could into the morning. so that I'd shorten the day.
I think there's a few of your ex-teammates. I think Scarlo wasn't a fan of nights. I think there was a few that you ended up playing a lot of big games at nights when you're at your peak.
Huge games. I'd leave 2 hours to get to the G as well on a Friday night from Geelong, because you just get concerned about traffic. I didn't want to be rushed. So there was a lot of elements to it. I would have loved to have played a night game at GMHBA, but I'd prefer day. Those twilight games were always strange. They probably weren't too bad. Didn't mind them. But Poppy, give me the day game, please. Will Dobie. Hi, guys. Love the podcast. Thank you, Will. My question is, do any players have weird routines?
We've gone over this a few times. The current crew, we don't really know too many, do we? Your crew had a few.
I haven't heard any really obvious ones. There's no whispers of completely bizarre routines. It doesn't mean they don't happen, but they just haven't leaked out yet, Will. Harry Taylor, our great mate.
Harry leaving's sort of taken a few of the weirdness out of the group.
Yeah, and we've seen he's released a couple of things on social media when he used to sign a commitment to who he was playing on and to what he was going to do for the team. Not saying that's weird. It's just part of his overall prep. He would be prepped within an inch of his life sometimes, Harold.
But we've mentioned from your crew, Scarlett to get there 3 hours early, he'd be in his boots, everything straight away. There'd be others who get changed at the last minute.
Darren Milburn was a good one for that.
You'd hide in he's talking to the doctors. Yep. Others would be kicking footies at bins.
There was the golf crew. So it was the footy golf was usually Stokes, Johnson, Ablett, that sort of crew who just pick doors in the MCG change rooms or around Geelong's change rooms and just kick goals and into bins and everything like that. Who else was? Other guys would you'd find them on the massage table for half an hour before. There's there was a real hierarchy with who you got taped by, what order you got strapped by, who saw the physios first. There was you kind of knew where you got in after the meeting.
Really?
Who was first up after the meeting, and you were generally second or third, and you never lost that spot.
So a young kid coming in, you're getting strapped last, son. Good luck.
You each had your own, well, not each had your own strapper, but you had your preferred strapper trainer. Leroy was a great Lee McConaughey was a great trainer at the club for a long, long time. He strapped my ankles for a long time. And then David King, who was the property steward, or he was called something else, playing training services coordinator or whatever it is, plus a trainer. He would often be involved if Leroy wasn't there. King would do a bit with my ankles. And the banter between Leroy and Kingy and me and a few of the other older boys was hilarious. I mean, you make a case for a bit of workplace bullying between what we used to torture them with and what they used to torture us with. And they'd have us in stitches for 20 minutes before the game, just sledging each other. It was a lot. They're some of my happiest memories, Scotty. That's the stuff I miss.
No, I know. The little things. The little things.
The banter between Leroy would often we'd accuse him of perhaps running a little bit of what do we call it? Carabine gold dye through his hair. And the boys would spot it from a mile away and they'd just come running and torture poor Leroy. Well, he'd give it back as good as what we gave it to him. And you'd just laugh for 20 minutes. And this is before huge games, grand finals, prelims. But it was a great way to just, there's so much, you get there 2 hours before a game, there's so much time to waste. It was a great way to just pass the time and kind of settle all those nerves down, just having fun with each other. Brilliant. There's some of my best memories, Scotland.
I love it. Love this. Memory lane.
Poor Leroy, anytime I see him now, I still stir him up. And don't worry, if he spots me from across the street, he just gives it to me. So, it's still a great connection. And all the trainers still come to all the reunions that we organise. And it's always great to catch up with all of them. They do so much work. They do incredible amount of work to just let us turn up and just go and do our jobs. They were
Well,
wonderful
unsung
people.
heroes.
Yeah,
is the
brilliant
cliche.
people. Loved all of them. Eden asks, who's the toughest opponent in the league right now?
Oh, it's happening on Friday night, Cameron. The Premiers are playing the Premiers. It's a
We-
grand final. What is it? Dress rehearsal for September.
From a midfield perspective, you're talking about individual opponents. The idea of lining up on, and I put these guys all in the same bracket, how
Okay.
you stop Bontempelli, Petrarca, and Dusty.
Yes. Very difficult. Very difficult.
difficult because of the different ways they get the ball, their size, their athletic ability, their speed, their power, their footy smarts, their danger
Offensive, they
around
can kick
goals.
goals on you. Yeah.
They'd be the three nightmares. But I reckon there'd be a few other teams looking at Geelong going, well, we're a little bit of afraid of what Hawkins and Cameron can do.
Yes.
We're a little, I think there's always, once he gets back and flying, there's always some trepidation from opposition about what Dangerfield can do. So there would be a few worried people around the Geelong matchups. But yeah, I often think about how I'd match up on Bont, Petrarca, Dusty, those types of players.
Yes.
And what I'd do, how they'd take me forward because they'd think they'd have an advantage there. Would you roll over to an Enright or to a Scarlet and then roll back in the mid? Like I love working out how we would have played against those types of players. Don't get that opportunity, of course, but you can always just daydream in your head and think, I would have tried this at stoppages on him, and I reckon that would have worked. But I'd be worried about if they got me in this situation. I would be very, very nervous.
You'd stop him, Cameron. You're the best it's ever been. Let's not muck around here.
Not at all, Scotland.
All about promoting your wares.
We better wind it up, Scotty. Thank you for those people who have sent in the questions.
Wound it up. My photo has frozen.
You have frozen again. You've got your New York Knicks hat on, which is
well, they made the playoffs. I'm celebrating that effort.
You're a Celtics man, though.
Yeah, I know, but I'm off them. The coach has become the general manager.
Oh, okay. Just taking over the whole show.
How about your boy Ben Simmons? They choked yesterday. That was shocking.
Oh, I missed that one.
76ers were in front, cruising, lost. That series is tied up now, I think.
Is it 2-2?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I think Brooklyn play Bucks today.
I think shortly. My television is already on.
Excellent. Will you go and enjoy that, Scotland? Enjoy Friday night.
I will. I look forward to next week already.
Not too much carry on for your Dogs, please. If next week the Dogs happen to get the win, I'm not sure you're going to be invited on the podcast. Let's hope we're talking about a Cats victory, Scotty.
Well, I hope there's a late change and we get someone there. But anyway, we'll enjoy it on the box.
Yes.
And the radio, of course.
Everyone out there, stay safe. Hopefully we're not far away from going along to the footy. It's got to be getting closer. Shame we can't be there Friday night, but cheer on the Cats from home, from the warmth of your living rooms. We will be back next week. We will be talking all about the terrific game of football that we hopefully get between the Dogs and the Cats. And then the following week's Thursday night game against Brisbane at the Gabba, another huge game for the Cats. They just keep coming. Let's hope the players can keep playing the type of footy they did last Thursday night against Port Adelaide. Enjoy the weekend. We will be back next week.